Great. Thank you for that video, Ken. Welcome everyone to our July session for our Portals of Innovation. Today's presentation will be regarding the City of Cape Canaveral. We'll be hearing from Zach Eichels to talk about their award-winning strategies within the city and the projects that have won Diamond Awards from the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council. So a little bit of context to remind everybody about who we are. The East Central Florida Regional Planning Council is one of 10 regional planning councils in the state of Florida. We were established in 1962, so we are one of the older regional planning councils, thanks to not only the Space Coast, which was really one of the premises of creating the Regional Planning Council, but of course, our Disney friends as well. We are a quasi-governmental agency in state statute, and we are, as per our state statute, one of the only convener of local governments on a regional level aimed at working across jurisdictional lines to solve regional and local issues. Our board is made up of 35 board members, made up of county officials, city officials, as well as regional and state agencies. So with our Regional Planning Council, we do serve 8 counties, 78 cities. We partner with, again, state and regional agencies and serve 4.8 million people in East Central Florida. Sorry, what do we do? So our mission, it defines what we do. It is to identify and address regional issues through collaboration in order to create a healthy and sustainable, as well as thriving and resilient region. So we do that through a number of our programs, which are designed to be reflective of our partners that we serve, so our local communities. We have expertise in regional planning and policy through our departments, as well as resilience and preparedness. Again, we offer a lot of intergovernmental coordination to develop solutions and strategies for moving forward and leveraging resources. And due to leveraging resources from the federal, state, and local levels, we have been able to secure in the last 5 years $65 million to bring into the region. And we always continue to maintain and increase that number to provide a level of service to our communities. So that looks at, when you're looking at return on investment, $13 return for every dollar of member dues. Next slide. So to give a little bit of context and to understand the caliber of the kinds of projects you're going to be hearing about today from Cape Canaveral, we need to look at how they're benchmarked and the categories across which they're judged. So the Regional Planning Council hosts every year our Regional Diamond Awards, and they were established to celebrate projects that don't just solve one isolated problem, but really to serve as regional beacons of innovations. And these projects really do showcase the innovation that the City of Cape Canaveral is advancing, as well as the partnerships and value that they bring back into their community. So competing across 8 diverse counties and 78 cities, as well as agencies, winning a Regional Diamond Award really means that the project represents the absolute gold standard for future-ready planning. So we will talk about the Diamond Awards a little bit later, our timeline for that. But I did want to highlight the Diamond Awards that the City of Cape Canaveral has won. They are the only winner of 3 Diamond Awards so far. So in 2023, their first Diamond Award was around healthy communities, and that was for their 5C, their City of Cape Canaveral Community Center. In 2025, they won the Innovative Places Award for the Cape Center. And then lastly, in 2026, the Technology and Big Data for the Veterans Memorial Park Smart Rain Garden. I do have to say, so we have 5 different categories, and they did not just keep winning within the same category, which really shows that all of their projects really do provide that value back into the community, because they are all very community based. They are community centers, and they show, again, the innovative way that they're looking at their community and the region. I also do want to state that we do have the Brilliance Award, which is our highest award, and give kudos to the Brevard County and a nonprofit for winning 2 Brilliance Awards, since our our opening of the Diamond Awards. So 2024, the Family Promise Firehouse Project in the City of Cocoa won our Brilliance Award. And this past year, Brevard County won their award for the Save Our Indian River Lagoon program. And so a quote within one of our winning projects was that award-winning communities are not defined by their awards. They're defined by the partnerships, innovation, and public value that earn them. And that is really reflective of the City of Cape Canaveral's projects. And as Zach goes through these, you will see that this quote definitely defines their approach. And with that, I will go ahead and hand it off to Zach.
Thank you, Tara. Hey, everybody. I appreciate being on today. That was a lot to live up to, Tara. I hope this works out. Let's see. Here we go. So my name is Zach Eichholz. I'm the Chief Resilience Manager and Emergency Operations Coordinator for the City of Cape Canaveral, obviously. Been with the city now for actually just over 7 years. I celebrated my 7th anniversary back in June. And it's been a wild, fun ride. We're a coastal municipality with many challenges that also represent many opportunities. So I'll take you through some of those today and highlight the projects that Tara was talking about, go a little bit more detail into each one and why each one was done and how they've been serving our community ever since. So next slide, please. I don't have, oh, there we go. Cool. So for those unfamiliar, the City of Cape Canaveral is a barrier island community, 1.9 square miles in size, so not that big, with a population of about 10,000 individuals, but that can fluctuate pretty heavily depending on what's going on around us. We just so happen to have literally the world's largest cruise port by passenger volume immediately to our north in the form of Port Canaveral. And then to the north of that is the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and north of that is the Kennedy Space Center. To our south is the world famous City of Cocoa Beach and the Cocoa Beach Pier. So many things going on. The Brevard Zoo is trying to build an aquarium just to our north too on Port Canaveral property that could bring in upwards of 500,000 visitors a year. So a lot of economic development going on, a lot of growth, a lot of people coming to the area, and meeting things, that are beautiful vistas of the ocean, of the Indian River Lagoon, rocket launches, all that cool stuff, but also coming up against many challenges. So next slide, please. So those challenges are mainly in the form as aging infrastructure. So a lot of the area was built up very quickly and very rapidly in the 1950s and 60s and 70s to meet the needs of the first space race. I'd say we're probably comfortably in a second space race now, so that's interesting. But yes, during the first one, when we were trying to get to the moon and beat the Soviets, the area was built out very quickly to accommodate those efforts. Many people moved in, and infrastructure was obviously built for that time period. And today things are quite different, and we're definitely in a period where that infrastructure is no longer viable. It is aging quite quickly. It is up against a lot of stress from, as I said, climate and weather hazards, as well as just the sheer amount of individuals coming and the amount of resources that are being utilized. The Space Center, those launches require a lot of electricity, a lot of power. So and something definitely to deal with. This picture right here is very indicative of the times. This is Hurricane Nicole back in 2022, and its storm surge. This is Cape Canaveral's beach looking north towards the harbor cut where Port Canaveral is. You can see the waves are clearly coming across the beach and running up against the dune line. We actually did lose quite a bit of beach here, but fortunately surge did not break through the dune line to endanger any residences behind it. But these are issues that we're continuing to deal with. Next slide, please. So, to deal with a lot of these hazards, man-made, natural, the city formally established its own resilience division, which I helped to oversee back in 2023. And this was a division carved out of the city's Community and Economic Development Department that is basically meant to streamline resilience and sustainability-based programs, as well as conduct hazard mitigation and adaptation. And more recently, as of 2024, spearheads the city's emergency management efforts. And that was done because it was considered that it would be nice to have both the ability for short-term response and long-term planning in the same umbrella. So I get to help oversee that, hence my second title, Emergency Operations Coordinator. Also, due to the fact that the city, its fire department and police department actually don't belong to the city. They are outsourced to Brevard County in the form of Canaveral Fire Rescue and the Brevard County Sheriff's Office. So there needs to be someone in the middle there coordinating these efforts between staff and those entities, as well as other entities like the Brevard County Emergency Operations Center. So with the formation of the division, we also formalized the Cape Canaveral 2063 program, which is just the formal name for the city's sustainability and resilience program. And the year 2063 or would be the city's 100th anniversary of incorporation, which is cool. So I didn't know that the Planning Council was in 1962, so we came about basically at the same time. That's awesome. Next, please. So a lot of the things that the division does, I kind of spoke about, but just some of the finer points that we like to talk about with the public when they ask, hey, what do you do? It's basically boils down to reducing single points of failure, enhancing continuity of operations, restoring natural ecosystem services, and empowering residents. Next, please. So the first on the list that Tara kind of touched on was the City of Cape Canaveral Community Center, also known as the C5, because it's 5 Cs. Next, please. This one was the first round of Diamond Awards. The building was opened in 2022, I believe in May of that year. It was part of a larger redevelopment program of a park that the building is situated in called Canaveral City Park. And before this building's construction, the city did not have a dedicated what you could call a community center. It had a rec building, but it did not meet anywhere near the capacity of what the city was looking for and the type of services that residents expect. And this one in the category of health and equity, the building is still here today, obviously, with us and has been doing a lot of great things that I'll show you right now. Next, please. So the City of Cape Canaveral Community Center has really, since its completion, been molded and slowly chipped away at to become what I would say is the city's dedicated resilience hub. We definitely still have some work to do in that, but we've come a long way in developing the policies and procedures and the infrastructure necessary to be comfortable in calling it a true resilience hub. Which is an extension of a community center that kind of also merges something like a logistical staging area for emergency operations that's resident focused specifically. We want a building that can work off grid. We want a building that can have a decreased environmental footprint while providing tangible services during blue sky and gray sky operations. So basically when everything's okay and when everything's not okay. It's a centrally oriented building in the heart of a very flood-prone community, about 2 blocks from the ocean. The city itself is only maybe 6 blocks wide from the ocean to the Banana River Lagoon to the west. So it's a good location to be centrally oriented. And I'll just take you through a list of some of the attributes that the building has. The first and foremost of which is that it was the first building or municipal building in the city of Cape Canaveral that featured a rooftop solar array. And you can see that right here. This is a 48 kilowatt system that is grid connected. So it's offsetting power from the building. We believe it's offsetting about 54%, give or take, of the building's annual electricity consumption, which is pretty good for a 24,000 square foot building. It's reducing emissions, and this array is oriented east to west in an undulating pattern to maximize the daily amount of sun. I think we get upwards of like 28% more efficiency with this type of installation setup, and it is ballasted for the most part, but there are some roof penetration points to make it handle the winds that it could experience. It's rated to withstand wind speeds of about 160 miles an hour. Hopefully that never gets tested, but we do feel pretty confident that it can remain. Next, please. So the building really, like I said, is meant to act as a place of refuge during normal operations and when things go wrong. I think day to day, this is best seen in the form of heat mitigation, where this is considered for us a heat refuge. where we do advertise it as such, where people can come in here and be comfortable and safe from when temperatures get too hot. There's actually a heat advisory in Cape Canaveral today. Temperatures are over 95 and have a heat index of over 105. So, you know, the inside the building is a constant 72 degrees, 30% humidity. And the community's demographics is generally slanted towards older individuals. Over 30% are 65 or older. We have a fairly large disabled population that really, you know, need assistance when hazards come up. So this is a place where people can come work out inside in cool temperatures and not have to fear possibly getting heat stroke or any other type of heat-related illness. There's public water fountains, water bottle refilling stations, bathrooms. Obviously, can't have a community center without pickleball courts. Super important, maybe the most important thing in the entire building, if you ask some. Basketball hoops and things like that. So, oh, and an indoor upstairs running track. So very cool in that sense that literally that it gets people out of the heat. And there's also a splash pad out front for people that want to cool off outside. But you can imagine that this space could be converted very quickly with a mat that we have that's spread out over the floor into an area where supplies could be set up. You know, entities like the National Guard could come in and set up supplies and food, water, communications. That device on the right of the screen there, that's actually called a CMCE device, which is a lightning suppression system that helps to cancel out lightning strikes in and around the area, which basically covers about the entire park. So it helps mitigate lightning strikes, which is super common in Florida. Next slide, please. For some of those off-grid capabilities we're looking at, so like I said, the solar array on the roof actually does not have any type of battery energy storage system that's tied into, and the building itself doesn't actually have any type of fixed diesel generator. But what it does have the access to is a mobile battery energy storage system, which you can see the exact system here. It's a Jackery 5000 Explorer Plus system. That is capable of being modular with the capability to going up to 60 kilowatt hours of capacity with 2 units right here, but you could theoretically get more and have them in their own little sections, delivering a power. These units are on wheels or have handles to be moved quite easily. They can be put in the back of vehicles. And say if there ever was a determination that there could be a devastating storm surge that could come in and swamp the city, these could be moved off islands and brought back as needed to help restore power for certain critical needs. So you can imagine setting up like a Starlink here for satellite internet, cooling stations, apparatuses for cooking, heat shelters, trailers, things like that. And then when things are going fine, we use these for helping to power city events off grid, so that we can transition away from noisy and polluting gas generators. Right now we have about 45 kilowatt hours of capacity, and we're going to be boosting that up to see the maximum that you can get here, 60 with this type of setup. So these have been good. We've never had to use them, fortunately, in action, I'd say, during or after a hazard event, but it's nice to know that we have them just in case. Next, please. Oh, and just for reference, those can be charged either directly plugging them into a wall outlet, or they come with their own flexible accordion solar panels, so you can charge them off grid if necessary. The community center is, like I said, close to the ocean, so it also does feature flood mitigation techniques. For anybody that has had to do sandbagging operations, you probably know it's probably one of the worst things in the world. Sandbags are extremely labor intensive to make. They're not super effective to actually stopping large scale flooding. So the building features semi-permanent metal flood barriers, one of which you can see here. These are called easy dams. These can be latched on by as little as 1 to 2 workers, depending on the size of the barrier, in about a minute. And there's a watertight seal that goes with a gasket around the door and they latch on to permanent fixture points. And when not in use, they're just stored inside a closet in the building, ready to go. And they take the place of a lot of sandbags, and they're much more hardy, and they're can be used multiple times, unlike sandbags. Yeah, there you go. There's a good picture over some double doors. Now, the front of the building is more of a storefront style, and Easy Dams doesn't make a apparatus that can do stuff like that. So, to protect the front of the building, this is the back north side of the building. To protect the south side of the building with the main entrance and the double doors, we have a Tiger Dam system here. Now, this one we did calculate does take the place of about what would need to be 22,000 sandbags for the equivalent protection. So this is a water-filled levee. You can see Public Works here is practicing on it shortly after we first got it back in 2024. We have the pyramid configuration with 2 on bottom and 1 on top. So it equates to being about maybe 5 feet high in total. And this would be deployed if we knew a major storm surge event was coming. And it doesn't necessarily have to also be deployed at the community center. If there's another space that needs it, we could move them there. These are very hardy systems. And hopefully, again, we never have to use these, but we're ready to go if we do. Next, please. So, a big part of resilience hubs is not only the infrastructure that's actually used to make them a quote unquote resilience hub, but it's also the programming inside. So we've had to build policies and basically SOPs of how to use this facility post hazard or before a hazard when we know something's coming. And we have a whole list, basically an appendix that goes to our emergency operation plans that showcases how to use this, the square footage of each room, what is stored in each room, staffing requirements, backup power capabilities, electrical plans and things like that, even where the area's designated emergency helipad is, which is actually in a ball field right to the east of the building that police and fire could use if they had to. But the space is also used heavily as an education space for residents and visitors, where we can come and showcase things that they should be prepared for. Best example I could probably find is we hosted the City of Cape Canaveral's 2026 Hurricane Expo in the main gymnasium. And the planning council was actually here. They're in the photo in the back. I could see them. They're displaying, yeah, they're there. They're displaying maps and stuff related to our vulnerability assessments. But we had multiple vendors in here that were teaching individuals about how to be best prepared for hazard situations. We had police and fire in here. The National Weather Service came, AARP, Brevard County Sheriff's Office, Animal Rescue. What do you do with pets during a storm? So very awesome that we can have this multi-use space and things like that. You can actually see some of those Jackery solar panels and batteries in the back there powering an inflatable emergency light. So pretty cool. Next, please. And another thing that we have that this facility can offer, if needed, is we have access to a mobile telehealth trailer, which you can see here out front. During the Hurricane Expo, the city has a facilities usage agreement with the Southeastern Telehealth Resource Center. And they have a trailer that can be used to help facilitate telehealth operations for minor things, nothing to a trauma level. But say the local hospital goes down. Cape Canaveral Hospital is located on an even smaller island in the middle of the lagoon with one exit and entry over the 520 causeway. So even in a minimal Category 1 hurricane, that hospital is usually evacuated. So say medical services were interrupted, this trailer could be brought in after the storm or pre-staged nearby and brought in and set up specifically at the community center. It comes with its own backup generator. And it comes with its own Starlink unit so that health workers could come in and use it if they need. It could be used as a cooling center. It has an onboard AC system. It could be used for food distribution. Yeah, see, it's got some windows there. People actually, when we bring it in for education seminars, people think it's a food truck, which is kind of funny because I see where they're coming from, but it's not a food truck per se. It has mobile billboards out front in the form of televisions that can display information that could be critical for people to know about. So very cool resource that we have access to that, again, we've never had to use it in action, fortunately, but it has been present at multiple community events for education purposes. Next, please. And the building is host to a lot of our sensor equipment. It has a fleet of weather stations on the roof, 3 of 9 stations across the entire city, one of which is under the jurisdiction of the Florida Division of Emergency Management. That's the one with its own solar panel, large solar panel facing south there with the giant metal pipe. That's connected to their network that they can tap into in real time. And it has a camera actually facing the ocean, so we can look and see if there's ever a storm surge event, what's going on. And we have the ability to play that back and time lapse these things. It actually faces enough of to the northeast to see the rocket launches too, which is cool. And it was helpful when the New Glenn rocket exploded in late May. We were able to capture that on camera and see what was going on. But these sensors help emergency responders, city staff determine real-time weather and climate data. They can help first responders understand if wind speeds have died down enough so they can begin operations, which is 45 miles an hour or less. That's when they can start doing things. And then similarly enough, we have tidal gauges in the lagoon that can help determine issues on the west side of the island. So very helpful. And a lot of those were done in partnership with, actually all of them, now that I'm thinking about it, were done in partnership with another entity and even came free to the city. So one of those was from Florida Atlantic University, and that was a $3,000 investment that they paid for through their own network. So that's awesome. And then the building does have access, of course, to a Starlink unit. We can tap that in. This Starlink is actually on the roof of City Hall, but it can be wired over to the building for use if needed. And we could take this off island if the situation is going to be bad enough and then bring it back and get it set up, ready to go for some level of communications to the outside world. Next, please. Okay, so moving on to the Cape Center. This is a really fun building, and I think it's quite a treasure for Brevard County. It's the only municipally owned and operated, essentially public arts and cultural heritage museum. Next slide, please. This is set up right next to Cape Canaveral City Hall, and this won the 2025 Diamond Award in Innovative Places. So this building, Ken, if you could go back one slide, actually, to... Yes, thank you. So this building, this is not what it used to look like when it was first built in 1966. It was the city's original city hall, and it was much smaller. It was about 30% smaller than what you see now. It did not have beautiful glass double doors. It was very cramped, very tiny, built for a different time. The new city hall right across the street came online in 2018, and the old city hall kind of sat idle for, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years, but it was always envisioned that it would turn to something like this. And in 2024, we formally opened the building. And now it's become really a fixture point for the city's social outreach initiatives, education spaces, and the arts, which I think is a very overlooked thing that happens in cities, unfortunately. Ken, you can advance 2 slides. There you go. So this is the inside of the building. Oh, there we go. This is the inside of the building. It did not have an open floor plan like this originally. It was very cramped, like I said. The building basically required a complete redo from the ground up. So there's not much left of the original, basically, except the 3 original walls on the east, west, and south sides and the roof. That blue wall you see on the right was the original exterior wall. And then that galley space in front of that is all added. It's got new LED lighting, water efficient features, and things like that. And it's a multi-purpose gallery space that can be used for education, conferences. So this picture is actually showing in 2025 when the city hosted the Florida Sustainability Directors Network conference, which was awesome. That we had about 70 people in here with a 2-day conference. And really got to show off the space. And when it's not being used for conferences or meetings, it can be used obviously as an art gallery. So local artisans from the community or outside the community, generally in Brevard, come and showcase their work. We've collaborated with NASA in here to show off pieces of space history, most recently with the Artemis II launch. And then going back dating to the Apollo 8 mission way back in the 1960s. We have information here about the Ais people who used to live in the Central Florida area well before we ever came along. Features on sea level rise and adaptation to that. And then there's a classroom in the back where art can be done, as well as a kiln for pottery making. So this is a really cool multi-purpose space that is very intimate. We have community meetings in here. It's a safe space. It's fun. It's inviting. And some of the art that's been put in here is truly incredible to see. You'll have big opening nights for the artists to come in and really get to showcase their work and empower residents and individuals that, hey, you can be a part of the community. You can be a part of what makes this place different and unique and fun. So we love the Cape Center. And oh, I'd be remiss to say CAPE is actually an acronym for Culture, Arts, Preservation, and Enrichment. Next, please. Oh, and I forgot again, that actually that building has the city's second rooftop solar array on it, a smaller 25 kilowatt system. Okay, so the third and final project that we'll be talking about is the Veterans Memorial Park Smart Rain Garden. This was a National Science Foundation funded grant through their Civic Innovation Challenge program. That is a rendering of what it was intended to look like. That was done by Kimley Horn and Associates, who was an official project partner. It ended up becoming the largest project partner grant that we've ever done, with including the city 15 grant partners, which is nuts. And the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council was a big part of that, and a very prolific partner. Next, please. So this formally opened in July of 2024 after about, I'd say, 3 months of construction. It was a part of a larger overall redevelopment of, or I should say rather restoration of Veterans Memorial Park that was built in the early 1990s. And as the name suggested, it was built as a place of remembrance and reflection for veterans in the community. All branches of the military are represented there. But it was needing a lot of TLC, and especially in the south west corner was an old dry retention area that only really had St. Augustine grass. It was very shallow. It was meant to obviously capture stormwater from a parking lot at the library, which is right next to this park. And it was very underutilized. And this is a very flood-prone area. A lot of hardscape in here. Some blocks are paved upwards of 80 to 90%, which is really bad, obviously, for stormwater runoff, both in terms of pollution going into the adjacent lagoon and in terms of flooding, because the water just can't get into the natural soils, which is a shame because the natural soils here are actually very good at infiltrating water. It's just they've been paved over. So this project came along, and with this grant opportunity, I'd say from an academic perspective, Stetson University was probably the spearhead for that. But it was discovered that there was a lot of community appetite for low impact development and green stormwater infrastructure. And when given the concepts of what those could look like, rain gardens kind of kept coming up as a prolific idea in the community. And we said, hey, why don't we attach it to this project? The park's already going to go under a redevelopment. It's going to get a lot of new beautification. And there was no plans to change that grassy swale in the southwest corner. So we grafted this project onto the existing park rehab and applied, and fortunately got a $1 million grant that about half of that went towards construction. The other half went towards research and development and planning, as well as monitoring later on. Next, please. So this won the 2026 Diamond Award in Technology and Big Data. Next, please. So this is what it looks like now. This is where you would have seen otherwise just a St. Augustine grassy swale with literally zero biodiversity. There's about 10 different species of Florida native and Florida friendly plants, mostly pollinators, that now call the garden home. It has a lot of grasses that help to stabilize the banks of the rain garden, rocks at the bottom for erosion control. And then there's stormwater control structures spread throughout. You can actually see one in the back corner there by those vehicles. That's a parking lot that feeds to a road that goes right by the rain garden. And this sees stormwater come in a controlled manner, and it actually has a grate on top that can capture trash or organic debris that can be just taken out and thrown out like in a trash bag and then put back in. So it helps with litter, and it just slows the flow down so that it doesn't create too much erosion. And now there's a cutout point so that stormwater can be directly taken off of the roads adjacent to the site, whereas you may remember before I said it was not able to do that just from one parking lot. So we've been able to increase the capacity of the general area now, where it can hold upwards of like 155,000 gallons of stormwater runoff, and it percolates very quickly into the soil here now that water actually can get to it, which is great. And we've seen a marked increase of pollinators and biodiversity in the area that we've confirmed through partners like UF and they've done pollinator surveys with residents in here, which is great to see. So it seems to be working. And the reason that we call it a smart rain garden is because it was wired up with sensors, groundwater sensors, stormwater pollution sensors, weather station was even installed. So we can monitor what's going on and try and get data. Because I think there's a lot of support for low impact development style infrastructure, but not always enough maybe uh, data to support investment in it. You know, is it really making a difference? Are maintenance costs high? This, that, and that. So I think we'd be able to show that it can make a difference, certainly environmentally. And we have resident testimony that actually claim, which is very great to hear if they're saying it, that the streets in the immediate area do not flood as much because there now is access for water to get to this particular location. And I've never seen this full. I've seen it about half full, and it's been through several hurricanes now with some pretty significant rain events. So that was good to see, including Hurricane Milton in 2024. Next, please. So what came off of this project was a lot of community involvement, and it was great to see just how many people in Cape Canaveral are in tune environmentally with what's going on, and they want to see changes in investments in green spaces. So we were able to get a broad range of individuals, young individuals that are still in school, all the way up to people that are older that live in condos. They don't have access to a home garden anymore, and they say, "Hey, I want to help you and give back to my community." So we've been able to cultivate a lot of volunteers that help weed the rain garden. They help clean it of trash. They help with pollinator surveys, as I said earlier. So it's been a really, really cool thing to see the amount of buy-in. And I think if there's anybody in public service on this call knows that there's usually always someone that says that may not like what you're doing as a city for any particular project, but I kid you not, for this one, there's been full buy-in across the board, just because they really like to see the return. And it's a very tangible thing to say that they got to help not only inform the decision of what was put here, but help maintain that for years to come, hopefully. And this is a volunteer event that's being done for the Rain Garden in the Cape Center next door. So there was a lot of scientific tangents that came off of this. We worked with Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. They did weekly drone overflights to monitor construction progress, but they also were able to use funding for the research to do enhanced LiDAR scans of the area and to cover about 50% of the city with drone technology that we could utilize to improve our flood maps. And see where we have issues, whereas perhaps the older FEMA flood maps, maybe we're not capturing the full details, especially of today. So that was a really great extra benefit that we got through this project. This is a picture of one of their drones before it took off. They even did shorelines, which was awesome to see because we do have a lot of erosion issues along our shorelines, especially on the lagoon side. Next, please. So this LiDAR data can be used for things like you see here. So we're working with the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council. This is such an awesome graphic. I love this. It's basically showing the level of vulnerability to storm surge from a hurricane. And this gives you a good idea of what the city looks like from the air. Basically, everything that's in color is within the boundaries of the city of Cape Canaveral. That area just to the south of the city is an unincorporated section of Brevard County called Avon by the Sea. But basically, the darker the color, the worse or more vulnerable that structure is to storm surge. Green is the best, then yellow, then orange, then red. And it highlights a particular area of concern along the ocean and along the lagoon. And then you could even see in that tippy corner on the left side, where there's a red structure right next to the lagoon. That's actually our water treatment plant. So yay for that. But it's been a great tool that will hopefully be made available to the public soon to showcase, and you'd be able to click on these individual buildings and see what type of threat level you have. And then even maybe incorporating that with like insurance information to see what flood insurance might be best for you. It shows city facilities and what is good and what is not for redevelopment and stuff. So that type of information is so great to have for the public to be open and transparent about that. Yeah, and I'm happy to say that we actually just took delivery of our new vulnerability assessment today, which is fantastic. So thank you to the entire planning team for that. It's a great document, and we're going to have it on our website pretty soon. But yeah, I think that might actually be it. Yeah. So thank you for your time. If anybody has any questions, I know there'll be a Q&A in a bit. We have our general email address down there. If anybody wants to reach out to us or come by, we love tours. We'll give you a tour anytime. So thank you so much.
Great, Zach. Thank you so much. That was really wonderful information. I mean, not only are you creating community space, but then using that community space to support your resilience efforts and your long-term preparedness as well as city operations. So I think the way that you're approaching everything is really to provide the whole gamut within one small building or one area. So thank you for all of that. I know that there are some questions that we do have, and Ken, are there any other questions for Zach? So you are the keeper of the questions.
We do have a few questions coming in here. I'm going to start with a couple that we began with.
Mhm.
That were emailed in by people who weren't able to join us today. And this first one is one that I like a lot because it's really what got me asking Zach to do this
Mhm.
uh, what made you decide that these were the projects that you wanted to approach and highlight at the Diamond Awards or similar things like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it was the level of need for the community, right? So these were spaces that were not available to the community before their construction, and nor had they really ever had been. And we also were trying to showcase some newer, innovative things that could hopefully be adopted in other areas of the city or by other cities in general. And especially for areas like Brevard County and Florida, we're moving in this direction. It's sometimes more difficult to do that. And like, for example, the concept of a resilience hub, I'm aware of a few other cities in Florida that are actively promoting that, but they're still very few and far between. So we're trying to be a model municipality for others to use and graft onto, because our resilience is only as good as the next best city, right? So it takes a village. So if we can enhance what we're doing while boosting others and community members, the things that people can learn at these installations that they can see, they can take back to their own residences. I just, as an example, I learned that someone from a local condo attended our Hurricane Expo, got some information that they never had before, brought it back, and they like redid their entire condo's emergency plan based on what we had, and they feel much more protected and safe and in the know. And I was like, oh wow, that's exactly what we're trying to do. That
Yeah,
that worked
that's
as
great.
intended. So, or even like the rain garden, if a condo association can build that themselves, or even private property owners,
Mhm.
we kind of got into the situation that we're in. It's like death by a thousand cuts. The city was once a beautiful green, lush barrier island that is now mostly paved, unfortunately. And that didn't happen all at once. That happened one driveway at a time, one sidewalk at a time, one road at a time. And if that could slowly be walked back with a rain garden in this front yard or a rain garden in that backyard, and before you know it, you could be making a difference there. So it takes time, but we're hoping with real world examples that are innovative, that it can really push people to do the right thing and get them over the hump.
You mentioned earlier about the community buy-in, and you just mentioned it here again. And that's one thing about Cape Canaveral is you guys do have a lot of community buy-in over there, and it seems like a lot of the projects you have, you don't see the typical NIMBY opposition that you do in other places. Can you talk some about the process of planning these projects and the community buy-in?
Yeah, it's an area that is fortunately blessed with a lot of existing environmental beauty. This photo is a great example of that. This is at Manatee Sanctuary Park, looking southwest over the Banana River Lagoon. Um, the people of Cape Canaveral, and I'd say Brevard in general, are very in tune with what's going on environmentally. The lagoon is a massive source of socioeconomic revenue, pride, and natural resources that has seen devastating impacts, especially in the last decade or so. That fortunately we're starting to see that be walked back through very intense and ongoing remediation projects. And people see the difference. They used to say, I could walk into this lagoon and see my feet. I used to see seagrass beds. I used to be able to catch fish. There weren't sewage spills. There wasn't litter. Um, so I think the community is yearning for green initiatives, whether it's literal green spaces or just initiatives that reduce the overall environmental impacts of operations. Um, and there's also a safety element to all this, right? So I think we've been able to connect people's minds with the fact that um, green technologies and green infrastructure equals usually more safety, especially when it comes to flooding. So with the rain garden project, we had a lot of community workshops before that led up to its construction, where we talked people through, with academic professors and engineers about, if you can build with nature instead of against it, you not only get beautiful public infrastructure, but that park is a literal tool. It's not just a park. It is a flood mitigation uh, piece of infrastructure that I guess is quite different than what most people might perceive. They're very used to pumps and pipes. But once they see that really can spiral, and people can get very inspired and want to do that on their own. So, the island's very built out. It's 95% built out. And I just think that people are looking for somewhat of a return to a more nature-based solution.
Thank you. And I will say, the sizzle reel we began with Councilmember Willis's interview. We actually did that in the Smart Rain Garden at Veterans Park, and it was difficult trying to get a shot without people in the background. That park definitely gets its use. Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, Going to the vulnerability assessments, was there some concern about releasing such a detailed structure by structural vulnerability graphics?
Yes, there definitely is, but I think it's important for people to know, because the city has seen a lot of newer individuals in the last few years, and I think especially during Hurricane Milton in 2024, we saw a lot of people that did not, frankly, know how to hurricane, and I think it's more important for us to be transparent and upfront about the risks that they have, because if they can reduce their own risks by coming into knowing things, that reduces the overall burden on the city's emergency team. If they know that they're in a structure that could be vulnerable, that could give them more incentive to evacuate and not be left behind for fire and rescue to deal with alongside all the other people that decided not to go, which we know is going to happen. It's just the way of life. Um, so I think that's really important. Our council has also been pushing a lot to uh, showcase these vulnerabilities more, and work with insurance industries and things like that. The city was able to recently get its classification down from a Class 8 community in FEMA's CRS program, from a Class 8 to a Class 6 through a lot of these endeavors, many of which you guys helped with. So that's awesome. So we can lower flood insurance premiums down to by 20% as opposed to 10%. That was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears for that one. But I think those efforts kind of that win kind of leads to why we want to do that stuff.
Great. And congratulations. That's awesome. Can
Thank
you
you.
talk some about that? You'd mentioned us, and we definitely work quite a bit together. But you mentioned that the Veteran Smart Rain Garden had, I believe, 15 different partners
Yes.
involved. Uh,
Yes.
how do you do a project with so many different people involved and so many different interests?
That's a good question. It's a lot of meetings. It's basically, we were trying to get a pool of subject matter experts that this research could be mutually beneficial for. So a lot of universities jumped on board. Embry-Riddle, FIT, Stetson, FAU. I'm probably forgetting one. I'm sorry if I am. But a lot of the professors that were working on the project with us were able to use this research to further their own programs, their own students, and things like that. We had a lot of students come through this project. We're able to give them real world experience with scientific cataloging and monitoring, surveying, and things like that. So it was mutually beneficial for everyone to be on board with this. University of Florida, that was another big one. And they even did work, for example, with like policy development related to low impact development and how that could be implemented into comprehensive plans. And we did actually, we redid our comprehensive plans, some of our sections in there, our coastal management section that now includes more LID-based language because of this project. So I think it was just a win-win for everyone. And frankly, the city, because of its smaller size, does need additional help when it comes to doing large-scale projects like this, both from a funding perspective, a technical expertise perspective, and resources. So when we're able to work together like that, it allows a lot more doors to open for stuff to come in. Those weather stations I talked about, the weather station that looks over the rain garden was given to us for free, worth over $3,000 to FAU. And they link it to a public network that we can access, residents can access and see what's going on. So it's just great to have friends.
Thank you so much for that. Going back to your CRS score, what do you think was some of the biggest impacts on lowering that score?
Impacts in terms of
what
would you
caused
say?
the score to lower? What do you think had the biggest impact?
We were able to get a lot put through as like a conservation designation, which helped a lot. A lot of education and outreach events helped us with that. Documenting of things, basically stating that we were doing insurance related education and things like that, SOPs related to flood mitigation and whatnot. That helped a lot. We one of the people in the city's resilience division, her name's Abby. She worked extremely hard on that, and she took the brunt of that. And she's striving to be the city's in-house certified floodplain manager. So if anyone has additional questions for the CRS, because I know that can be a big headache for how to do that, because we were stuck at a class 8 for literally years and years, and we thought it was impossible to actually go down. But I'd be happy to give you her contact information, and she can really help anyone dive deeper into that.
And if you reach out via the resilience@capecanaveral.gov, I'm sure you can follow up from there.
Absolutely.
You mentioned maintenance costs when it comes to the smart rain garden and all the different sensors on top of the buildings and things like that. What is the level of maintenance for these projects, and how do you plan to do these in the future?
That's a good question. That's definitely something to consider. I've heard that a lot when it comes to LID-based infrastructure. So the rain garden, fortunately, so we've been monitoring how it's supposed to, or how it's been doing, obviously, since it was completed. And there was always a level of expectation that, in a sense, there wouldn't be maintenance on it because the whole point of the project was to rewild the area, right? So we don't cut the plants back unless it's needed for some reason for the health of the plant or just some life safety issue. We do hand weeding with volunteers, and fortunately through the program we've been able to cultivate a lot of them, so we don't really have an issue doing that. And it does help that we're a smaller community, so we have more access to reach out to these people and have a wider reach, so to speak. So that's, the volunteers have been crucial for that. But aside from that, there really isn't much maintenance done for the rain garden. The stormwater control structures I spoke about, those are very easy to maintain. You literally just pop the grate off the top, take the bag out underneath, and put it in a trash bag and put it back. There's only 3 of those. That's very easy for a maintenance worker to do. So that one has not been that bad. Now, moving into the future, we do have plans to give the rain garden a refresher in a few years, probably as sedimentation slowly comes in, and things like that, where probably have to put in new rocks and things. But um, honestly, it was a giant experiment also to see how the community would react visually, aesthetically to an LID-based project. Because you do often see individuals who say, there should be clean cut grass, everything should look very uniform and pristine, which I totally get. If you see my desk, I'm very like that. Everything has to be in the right place. But I think for this one, we did go into it with an education campaign centered around this is not going to look like a piece of traditional infrastructure, and it is meant to somewhat be wild. And in terms of the sensors equipment that's throughout it, a lot of those fall under the responsibility of the program partners that we worked with. So like the groundwater wells, that's Stetson University. They come out and check those for us. Or the weather station, that's FAU. They come out and check that for us. The auto sampler that was used to do stormwater calculations for nutrient pollution, that was Stetson University. So, and that was worked out in the grant agreement when we first went into this together. So we do try and put a lot on our partners to see what they can do before having to do it ourselves. That's been really, really helpful.
Speaking of your desk, I wanted to comment on your Artemis poster there in the background, keeping with the Cape Canaveral theme there, I see.
Yes. Love Artemis.
Okay, well, you have 3 great projects that won Diamond Awards, huge community things. What's the next big project for the city?
Oh, that's a good question. It is saving our water treatment plant, frankly. The water reclamation facility was built in the 1960s and has been added to ever since. It's nearing capacity, both from a literal capacity standpoint and from a land perspective. There's not much room to grow. And the shoreline it was built on is very erosion prone. We've already had to put in some short-term solutions, but we have long-term aspirations to redo the entire shoreline with some type of living shoreline component, maybe a hybrid shoreline that involves green and gray infrastructure to get the best of both worlds. Last year, we installed devices called reef arches at the plant's oxidation ditch, which was getting very close to the drop-off of the lagoon, as well as adding 100 tons of new granite boulders. The reef arches are basically wave breaks that mitigate the wave energy and also provide habitat for fish and other marine life. And they let sunlight pass through them to let seagrass on the bottom grow, which is great. But we only were able to get 10 of those. So they're doing their job very well, but we need a lot more. So a big targeted effort to redo the shoreline to try and get it up to snuff and, just a general overhaul of the facility to enhance its resilience and whatnot, because we are seeing a lot of issues. I spoke about capacity issues. It's probably not actually so much from a development perspective. It's from the extreme rainfall events that we're starting to see that overwhelm the system with massive amounts of inflow that come in that can spike the plant's intake well above what it's supposed to be doing for a few days. So that's something that we're definitely going to have to tackle as a city. It's just funding, space constraints, a lot of different things will have to factor into that. So that's going to be a long road.
So Zach, can I add on to that another question? So with some of that to reduce the capacity going in from stormwater and whatnot, is that, and this is a dumb question because I'm not an engineer, is that water that's going into your how is that getting there? Is that going through like grates and whatnot that maybe some LID and swales and stuff like that within particular areas of the city would reduce the water going into the system?
Yes, that's a great question. That's absolutely true. So it's coming from everywhere. It's coming from stormwater runoff that goes through manhole covers, cracks in pipes, through the open basins at the treatment plant itself. And also with things like, when it rains a lot, the groundwater table goes up, and the slow creep of sea level rise, being a barrier island, water is coming in from below as well. So that's how additional water's getting into the system. And yes, I would say LID applications can be effective in mitigating that if we can stop runoff and let the rain stay where it falls. We've also been instituting systems, underground chamber systems at parks. So at Canaveral City Park, where the community center is, there's a 900 plus thousand gallon underground stormwater chamber system that has also been reconfigured to take excess reclaim water that we can pump there to get it out of the plant and not have to go to the lagoon. So that's been really helpful. We're definitely going to have to do that, more of that. But it's definitely a challenge that we're still honestly trying to figure out how to deal with, as I'm sure most Barrier Island cities are that have water treatment plants.
And it's funny you mentioned the extreme rainfall because Tara and I were talking this morning about that very thing of even when I hear extreme rainfall, I typically think of these tropical systems and not just the afternoon rainstorms, but we've seen even just our regular afternoon rainstorms now causing these major water events.
Yeah, last October, Brevard County had a massive rain event. The same one that I think affected Lake Mary. Um, and Titusville got the brunt of it to our northwest. But the treatment plant, just for reference, over the course of about 3 hours, got 7 inches of rain. And our
Wow.
sensor there told us that. And I was watching it from home, and I was just shaking my head. It's like, this is not a good day. It's stuff like that. That's the type of stuff that we're worried about.
Yeah. And a bit of a shameless plug here, but at our next council meeting on August 19th, we will be discussing biosolids. And so
Oh,
that's
cool.
something that throughout the region people are dealing with. I see
Yeah.
no additional questions, and so I will let us wrap it up a little early here, give you back a few minutes of your day. I hope everyone can join us next month on August 13th when we discuss LEPCs, emergency preparedness, and the role in regional planning. And again, please take the post-event survey. The link is on the screen. And have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.